I'm thinking about the chip sector a little bit. Micron Technology, right? That's going to be our focus as it gets ready to report its earnings after the closing bell. Stock's up about 1.8%. Semi's outperforming as a whole. Stephen, up about 0.7%.
Hey, look, I was excited. We got a 40 and a 41 in terms of record closes. It doesn't look like we're going to get 42, though.
No, it doesn't. I mean, at midday, it looked like there was some potential. You know, the other thing I'm paying attention to, of course, is the 1-2 punch that we got from China with the broad stimulus measures one day and then the rate cut the next day did very little to carry over into U.S. trading. No, that's why it's sort of like, what are we waiting for? Is it really going to be jobs? I'm obviously interested in Micron also, but that trade of small caps and mid caps that were kind of outperforming has not really measured up anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, and it gets to this whole idea of sort of what the next catalyst is going to be for this market. If you listen to what our conversation with Dan Suzuki, it does seem to be that maybe it is going to be the start of earnings season once that gets going here in a few weeks.
He's an equity guy. He has to say that, right?
He has to say that, and we should also point out that the earnings season from the last cycle is still not over. Micron earnings scheduled for after the bell, as is from the investment bank Jefferies. But before we get to that, let's walk you through the numbers here on Wall Street. A relatively mixed day here. I'm not sure what you can read into it, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average, no matter which way you cut it, is going to close the day down by more than 200 points, almost 300 points on the day, or about 0.7% as we wait for these numbers to settle. The S&P 500 down roughly about 10 to 11 points, or 0.2%. It looks like the Nasdaq is going to just barely hold on to gains, less than 0.1% gain for the Nasdaq Composite, 0.1% gain for the Nasdaq 100. Your Russell 2000, though, that's your big laggard here on the day, Carroll, down about 1.2%.
Yeah, Romaine, a bit of a meh day, if you will. Just you can kind of feel it. But if I look at the S&P 500, folks, most of the names lower today. 369 names losing ground on this Wednesday, 132 to the upside. And Scarlet, you've got 2 unchanged.
Yeah, and that's reflected in the sector performances as well. If you look at the S&P 500 and its 11 industry groups, there's 9 groups that are in the red. And the reason why it doesn't really look like that on the big pizza pie is because tech is up about 0.5%. Utilities also up 0.5%. So what does it say? That the growthiest part of the market and the safest part of the market are both up by 0.5%. Energy, by the way, losing ground by 1.9% as oil prices sink.
You still have pizza on your mind.
I do. He does. Yeah. It's going to be a while.
I always have pizza on my mind. All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers. Meta certainly front and center. We've been talking to Ed Ludlow, you guys too, about the new glasses out of Meta. That stock up about 1.3%. We do have Micron crossing. Do we want to go there first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So Micron fourth quarter adjusted EPS, folks, 6 cents better than the street was expecting, $1.18 coming in. The estimate was $1.12. Fourth quarter adjusted cash flow from operations, $3.41 billion. Slight miss, $363 billion was the street forecast. And fourth quarter adjusted gross margin, guys, 36.5%. That's outperformance. The estimate on the street, 34.7%.
Yeah, I mean, looking pretty solid all around. Of course, the detail that we want to see is where exactly we dig into which bits of the business. What is the HI trade looking like in this front as well?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people are definitely going to be paying attention to is what it says about it. It's the AI picture, right, for Micron. This is a company that for so long made memory chips and didn't really have a role in the whole AI narrative, and that's slowly changing. Yeah, taking a look here at first quarter adjusted revenue, it looks to come in about $8.5 billion to $8.9 billion. That is definitely above estimates. But on the flip side, you wind up having some cash flow from operations for the fourth quarter missing estimates. But that outlook, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, that looks good. And I think this is what everyone's looking for here. It's this idea that, yeah, AI, that memory chips in and of themselves don't have the same sexiness as what NVIDIA is putting out there. But as you build out these data centers and you hear some of these pie-in-the-sky dreams from OpenAI and these massive things they want to build, well, guess what? You need memory in order to do all of that. And so maybe potentially Micron benefits.
All right, so interesting. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it. That stock up 11% here in the aftermarket. All right, I mentioned Meta, of course, their new AI glasses, unveiling new models of its Quest headset. So we've seen that stock off its highs here at the close, up as much as 2.5% today, or almost 2.5%, but finishing with a 1.25% gain. Constellation Energy, man, continues to be among your top gainers in the S&P and NASDAQ 100, just continuing to outperform, up another 3%. Of course, since we got that news that Microsoft going to tap into power, Constellation going to reopen the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. I know Constellation Energy, their CEO was on Bloomberg on Monday talking about AI and talking about power. So anyway, continues to be certainly front and center when it comes to investors. Quick check, Intel, also something that investors continue to keep in their radar, up another 3% in today's session. Of course, again, this one we continue to watch to see if ultimately will there be some kind of deal, whether it's Apollo, whether it's Qualcomm, or something else that gets Intel into its next chapter. And just for something different, for those who like sports betting, I got to mention Flutter. It was up as much as 10% in today's session. The company authorizing a share buyback program of up to $5 billion over the next 3 to 4 years, according to a statement. Stephen, that stock finishing the day with a 5% gain.
Yeah, I'm going to take you to car makers for the decliners that we're looking at as well. General Motors, one of those slumping today, down 4.9% at the end of trading there. After Morgan Stanley analyst Anna Jonas warned that cars are too expensive for US consumers and that a price war in China is going to hurt the bottom line there. So even with interest rates coming down, those repayments still too expensive for many consumers, keeping them out of the showrooms too. He also downgraded Ford and Rivian and upgraded dealers, including AutoNations. That's one of the folders.
Have you seen the price of cars out there, Stephen? I don't know what it's like over in your world where you live, but if you go to a lot here, I mean,
car?
I don't know. I live in central London. I can't drive.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you got nothing.
Yeah, there's but look, I know they're expensive because, yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the things that we're kind of following, and especially people thinking about EVs and where that goes as well. But look, I'm joined by a bunch of style icons, so I want to talk about Stitch Fix as well. Worst slump in
Who are you talking about?
Wait, obviously you. Obviously you.
This sheen that
Have
I
you ever
see
seen
of
Alex
everyone
when she
on this
comes
show.
in? She's like,
She
she
is
looks
a
like she's out of
super
like the
style
fashion
icon.
magazine or something.
Oh my gosh, that may be the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Okay, we'll savor it. Don't drink
Make
it all
him
at
say it
once.
again. Make him say it again.
Well, hey, look, maybe you guys don't need the help that Stitch Fix offers some people. Personal styling platform shares down 35% at one stage, down almost 40% at the close there as well. They issued weaker forecasts than expected for net revenue and adjusted EBITDA. Props to Yusuf Squali at Truist Securities for getting this pun into his note, talking about material headwinds facing the stock. I liked that. I thought it was a good one. See? Okay, one more for you. On homes, we've been talking about falling home sales, of course. But KB Home, after their results, shares down as we're looking about 5.4% at the end there. They reported earnings per share. Net orders for the third quarter fell short of estimates, talking about numbers confirming builder margin pressure as well. This is echoing something that we heard from Lanars last week as well. That's another share in focus for us.
All right, just want to hit on yields real quickly before we go back to Micron for a moment. You're looking at yields sold off across the curve. The front end ended up about 5 basis points, and the back end up similar amount. You had a 2-year auction today that went just fine. Nothing to write home about. And we do get another auction tomorrow of 5-year notes, about $70 billion. No, sorry, $44 billion in 7-year notes tomorrow. Today was that 5-year note auction, did just fine. So we'll see. But that curve continues to steepen. Now we're over 20 basis points, a pretty fast re-rating from the inversion that we've seen.
All right, we do want to go back to Micron. Those are the biggest moving shares in after hours trading, up about 9% here. A beat on several key metrics and a fiscal first quarter sales forecast of about $8.7 billion. But I thought more importantly, they talk about this high bandwidth memory chip, which is I guess what all the investors are focused on. That could potentially be the future of this company, and that does appear to be where Micron's forecast is resting on here. So I guess if this is an AI play, a play that of course is a stock that's down 30-something% over the last few months, and maybe potentially this is it.
All right, just watching. Shares of Micron up about 8.5% in the aftermarket. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage. What did he say? Icons of style?
Style icons.
Tim better
Wear
watch
it with
out.
pride.